Chapter 2, Lesson 7, Essential Question. When solving a division problem, when do you write the remainder as a fraction? Unlock the problem. Scott and his family want to hike a trail that is 1,365 miles long. They will hike equal parts of the trail on 12 different hiking trips. How many miles will Scott's family hike on each trip? The first thing that we need to do is underline what we are trying to find. Right here it says how many miles will Scott's family hike on each trip. Now we need to circle the important numbers. How many miles do they want to hike? 1,365. And how many different trips are they going to take? 12. When you solve a division problem with a remainder, the way you interpret the remainder depends on the situation in the question. Sometimes you need to use both the quotient and the remainders. You can do that by writing the remainder as a fraction. One way to write the remainder as a fraction, the first thing we need to do is divide to find the quotient and the remainder. We will use this area and the graph paper to help us stay organized as we solve our division problem. Now that we have our division problem solved, we need to decide how to use the quotient and the remainder to actually answer the question. Remember, the question was how many miles will Scott's family hike on each trip? First, we need to know that the divisor, the 12, represents the number of trips Scott and his family plan to take. The 113, the quotient, represents the whole number part of the number of miles Scott and his family will hike on each trip. And the 9 represents the number of miles that are left over. The remainder represents 9 miles, which can also be divided into 12 parts and written as a fraction. We would write 9 over 12 because 12 is the divisor. So then we would write the quotient with the remainder written as a fraction in its simplest form. 113, 3 goes into both 9 and 12, so that would be 3/4. 9 divided by 3 is 3, 12 divided by 3 is 4. So Scott and his family will hike 113 and 3/4 miles on each trip. Another way to answer a division problem is to use only the quotient. Our new story problem, the segment of the Appalachian Trail that runs through Pennsylvania is 232 miles long. Scott and his family want to hike 9 miles each day on the trail. How many days will they hike exactly 9 miles? Our first strategy that we use is underline what we are looking for. In this case, how many days will they hike exactly 9 miles? Exactly. Now we need to circle the important information. How many miles total? 232. And how many miles each day? 9 miles. Now we need to divide to find the quotient and the remainder. Using my place value, I know that I cannot divide 2 hundreds by 9 without regrouping, so I'm going to look at the tens. How many 9s are in 23? There are 2. Multiply 2 times 9 equals 18. Subtract. Regroup. 13 minus 8 is 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. Is 5 less than 9? Yes, I can move on. Bring down my 2. How many 9s are in 52? Well, 9 times 6 is 54. That's too much. 9 times 5 is 45. Multiply 9 times 5. Subtract. I end up with a remainder of 7. Now that we have our answer, 25 remainder of 7, we're going to look at our question. Our question wants us to find exactly 9 miles. So, since the remainder shows that there are not enough miles left for another 9-mile day, it is not used in our answer. So, they will hike exactly 9 miles on each of 25 days. Let's imagine they had asked a different question. In this case, they're asking, what is the total number of days that Scott will need to hike 232 miles? In this case, we would add 1 to the quotient, because to hike the 7 remaining miles, he would need an additional day. So in this case, Scott would need 26 days to hike the 232 miles. We would be taking our 25 in our quotient and then adding 1 more because of the remaining 7 miles. If they had asked a different type of question, like right here, where we will actually just use the remainder. This question, if Scott hikes 9 miles each day except the last day, how many miles will he hike on the last day? In this case, they're asking only for the last day. Since the remainder is 7, he would have hiked 9 miles for 25 days. And then on that last day, he would hike 7 miles. We have now practiced 3 ways how to use our quotient for our answers. 1, using only the main whole number quotient. 1, adding 1 to the quotient to make up for the remainder. And then lastly, using just the remainder as our answer. Now let's work on the try this. A sporting goods store is going to ship 1,252 sleeping bags. Each shipping carton can hold 8 sleeping bags. How many cartons are needed to ship all of the sleeping bags? First, we underline what we are being asked to find. How many cartons are needed to ship all of the sleeping bags? What are our important numbers? Well, the grand total of sleeping bags is 1,252, and each carton has 8 sleeping bags in them. Now I'm going to fill in the missing pieces of this division. Well, they've already found one group of 8 within the 12 and multiplied, then subtracted, and brought down the 5, and we are working with the 45 right here. How many 8s are in 45? There are 5 8s in 45. 5 times 8 is 40. Subtract 5. They already brought down the 2. How many 8s are in 52? 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48. So I'm going to write my 6. 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract 12 minus 8 is 4. Is 4 less than 8? Yes, so I have a remainder of 4. In this case, I need to decide, am I going to be writing my remainder as a fraction? Am I going to be using just the quotient? Am I going to be adding 1, or am I going to be using just the remainder? Since there are 4 sleeping bags left over, how many cartons will be needed? Well, we know that we will need at least 156. But we can't leave out these 4, they need to be shipped as well. So we need to add an additional carton for those sleeping bags to be shipped. That means that our answer will be 157 cartons. You should now complete the share and show problems. Press pause while you complete them. Keep your prism on yellow. If you have gotten all answers correct, you may turn your prism to green and work on the On Your Own section. If you did not, keep watching. Keep your prism on yellow. I will be going over number 3. Before moving on to number 3, I'm going to explain 1 and 2. Number 1, they wanted to know how many miles they will hike each day, so that includes the remainder. We had our whole number quotient of 6, and then our remainder of 3 placed over our divisor of 12 to make a fraction of 3 out of 12. We were able to simplify this by using the common factor 3. There is 1 3 in 3 and 4 3s in 12, so we were able to simplify our fraction to 1/4. Problem number 2, they wanted to know exactly 14 miles, so we only used the whole number of our quotient because they didn't want a partial day. Now on to problem 3. Dylan's hiking club is planning to stay overnight at a camping lodge. Each large room can hold 15 hikers. There are 154 hikers. How many rooms will they need? We're going to underline how many rooms will they need because that is what we are answering. Our important numbers are how many hikers there are, 154, and how many hikers each room can hold, which is 15. Because we are starting with a larger quantity and trying to find that amount broken into pieces, we are dividing. So we are going to do 154 hikers divided into groups of 15. There is no way to break 100 into 15 pieces without regrouping, so we're going to look at the tens. How many 15s are in 15? There is 1. Then we multiply 1 times 15, and then we subtract and end up with 0. We need to bring our 4 down. Is there a way to break 4 into 15 groups without making it smaller pieces? There is not, so we need to have a 10 for a placeholder, multiply by 0, and subtract. We end up with a remainder of 4. So now we need to look at our question again. How many rooms will they need? How many rooms? Can we have a partial room? No. Those 4 hikers need a place to stay. So we are going to be adding 1 to our remainder, which makes our answer 11 rooms. If you are still confused after watching this review, go back and watch the lesson again. Keep your prism on yellow. Turn your prism to red only if you still need help after watching the lesson a second time.